So this is Baruch Fleischman. What's happening here at the, let me see if I can get this lined up. What's happening here at the Kollel is that we are learning the hidden sciences. And as Rabbi Mimran was want to tell me, is that the time has come to reveal things that have been hidden for thousands of years. So what we're looking at is people who, are along that path that could teach us something really deep. So we just heard a shir by Rabbi Mimran in his book, The Ultimate Connection with God, talking about the Vegas, just really tremendous ideas about thought. And well, here we're going to come over here to another person who's deeply, deeply interested in the secrets of Torah. And that is Rabbi Yaakov Kronenberg, Jewish Astrology, a Cosmic Science. Now, let's see where we got to the last time. And remember, the section that we're in right now is proving the fact that Torah and astrology definitely do go together. It's a part of Torah Sheba'al Peh. It's a Torah. Let me get this up a little bit more. There we go. And we're going to go on from here because not only does Rabbi Avraham Bar Chia talk about the differences between Jewish astrology and the astrology of Avodah Zarah, but he names the names of the Avodah Zarah and how they work. Now let's go on. It appears to me that all four of the forbidden astrological sects are mentioned in the book of Daniel in the dream of the wicked Nebuchadnezzar. So here, like it is written, Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams. His spirit was agitated and his sleep was interrupted. The king said to call the necromancers, the astrologers, the sorcerers of the Chaldean stargazers, to tell the king his dream. This is according to the Storm edition of the Bible, written in Hebrew with the English translation and printed by ArtScroll. So he says, let me first read out to you from the book of Daniel itself. This is chapter 2, verse 2. He said, in the second year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams. His spirit was agitated and his sleep was interrupted. The king said to call the necromancers, the astrologers, the sorcerers, and the Chaldeans, which are stargazers, or demonists. These are different translations to tell the king his dream. So, as often happens in ancient texts, you may have some changes in the actual text itself. Differences, different places. Let me get this lifted up a little bit, see if we can get it so easily. So basically he said he dreamed a dream and was very agitated when he woke up in the morning, and the dream really shook him up. But he didn't remember the dream. So he called all the four kinds of people who said to them, look, I had a dream which I don't remember, so I want you to tell me what my dream was and interpret it for me. So each of the four groups didn't know what to do. If the king told them what his dream was, they could interpret it, but they could not be expected to know what the dream was without him telling them. But Daniel came along, and he first prayed to God, and God gave him the ability to tell the king what he dreamed. And then Daniel became close to the king because of that. The king said to all the necromancers, the astrologers, the sorcerers, and the Chaldeans, who are stargazers, which he says, that is, they do what they do through demons, to tell the king his dream. And the king said to them, I had a dream, and my spirit is troubled to know the dream. Then the Chaldeans said to the king in Aramaic, most of the book of Daniel is written in Aramaic, O king, live forever. Tell your servants your dream, and we will show the interpretation. The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, the word from me is firm. If you do not make known to me the dream and its interpretation, you should be torn limb from limb, and your houses should be laid in ruins. But if you show the dream and its interpretation, let me get this lined up here a little bit. You shall receive from me gifts and rewards and great honor. And therefore, show me my dream and its interpretation. Rabbi Avraham now translates these four as, let's start going to the Hartumim, or capturers, those who capture the time and worship them. Now, exactly how you do that, I'm not sure. In order to increase or decrease the planet's influences. They have some way of thought, message, in which they're able to reach the patterns of the planets. Then the next one is called Ashafim, the senders of the power. Then the Mechshafim, masters of the pictures, and Kasdim, drawers, who are the ones who did things according to their agricultural stars. Anyway, we find that these four are also mentioned in the book of Daniel in Aramaic in another place, chapter 4 and 4, verse 4. Nebuchadnezzar was at ease in my house and prospering in my palace. I saw a dream that made me afraid, and as I lay in bed, the fancies and the visions of my head alarmed me. So I made a decree that all the wise men of Babylon should be brought before me, that they might make known to me the interpretation of the dream. Then the necromancers, the astrologers, the Chaldeans, and the demonists came in, and I told them the dream, but they could not make known to me its interpretation. At last Daniel, who was named Belshazzar, that's in the book, after my God, and in whom is the spirit of my holy gods, came in before me, and I told him the dream. So here, Chartumia, Ashafia, Kasdia, and Vegazria are mentioned. So these names are all mentioned there. So instead of the Mechshafim, the word Garzia is used. And Rabbi Abraham is going to talk about why the names are switched there. He says, now that's interesting to me, because there is such a concept of switching dreams, or switching names. We find these four are also mentioned in the book of Daniel in Aramaic with Chartumia, Ashbin, Kuzdi, and Gezri. And it is also written Chartumia, Ashbin, Kuzdi, Gezri. So in other words, there are different slight variations of how they're recorded. And their father, the king, made him, that is Daniel, chief of them. It is clear that the Chartumim, Ashbim, and Kuzdim that are mentioned first in Hebrew are the Chartumim, Ashbim, and Kuzdim that are mentioned a second time in Aramaic. You can see that that three of the four names are the same. But the Mechashvim that are mentioned in Hebrew, it's possible that they are the Gezerah in Aramaic. It is possible that they are the same thing. That the Hebrew word Mechshafim is Gezerah in Aramaic, which are magicians, or Baalei Tamunot, that make images, the ones who make pictures, because it's not their way to talk about the future. Listen, I'm losing a lot of this. I'm really sorry about it. He said it wasn't the way of the Mechashvim to talk about the future, and the four that are mentioned in Aramaic, their way is to talk about the future. It is possible the Gezerah are those that study the constellations deeply. And they are called Gezerah, which is another word in Hebrew is like the word Gezerah, which means laws. Because their opinion is that the testimony of the planets is fixed and cannot be changed, but that they have permission to decree and establish. This opinion is right in my eyes, because it is said in Nebuchadnezzar's first dream, the Chaldeans responded before the king and said, there is no man on earth who can relate the king's matter. That is why no king, leader, or ruler has ever requested such a thing of any necromancer, astrologer, or Chaldean. Of the four, Nebuchadnezzar only mentions three, and leaves out Mechashvim, which is magicians. He said, but Mechashvim, okay, is where they work with Kishuv, because it is not their way to make known things like this. So he left them out. Now, what are we getting out of all of this? All these different names that they're switching around. So you see that there is a difference between the magicians and the Gezerah. This one wants to say. On the other hand, one can say that they're all the same thing, but once they were mentioned in Hebrew and once in Aramaic, but Gezerah comes from the word decree, which means that the Gezerah, which are mentioned in Daniel, used to use magic powers to make decrees. These people studied the constellations deeply and made laws from it, because they say that the testimony of the planets is fixed. Now, exactly this point that he's making, and he said it several times here, that their testimony is that planets are fixed. In other words, what your destiny is, your destiny, and you can't change it. It cannot be changed. But that they had the permission, this is the lie, that they have the permission to establish and make decrees for the planets. They could change the orbits of the planets or change the natures of the planets in some way. Rather, their job is to explain the different forces that are on the earth and when they increase or decrease. But the real job is to really explain the forces that are on the world, whether they increase or they go up or they go down. In a similar vein, Daniel didn't mention them when he said to Nebuchadnezzar, the secret the king requests, no wise men, astrologers, or necromancers, nor demonists are able to tell the king. Now, all of that I didn't understand 100%. Something needed to be looked at and thought about again. But at any rate, we're learning about Rabbi Abraham Bar Chia and his view of the different kinds of idolatry that actually exists. This is Baruch Fleischman, Tikkun Elevator Kollel.